Only one out of every 2,000 startups seeking venture capital actually obtains it. This startup got a ton, $16 million in venture capital startup funding, and a train wreck is in the making. I'm Lance, I consult in this space, and today I'm going to show you a startup that is going to lose $16 million in startup venture capital funding by not knowing what they're doing. Real is a startup that launched 2 years ago with the intent of being an in-person mental health studio in New York City, and studio in the sense of a gym or fitness center with a membership model, but instead of being a place to work out physically, you would visit their location to maintain and improve your personal wellness through touch points and experiences centered around building your behavioral and mental fitness. But with the pandemic, they had to pivot to an online care model focused on group therapy. They're targeting what they call the therapy curious, who are priced out of the traditional one-to-one therapist-client engagement, and they have a membership or subscription fee. Real's pricing for their offerings, well, it's nothing short of phenomenal. And there you see it, $90 for a year, $55 for 6 months, or $13 a month. In this business model, at the end of the day, I see 7 Cups 2.0. As in 7 Cups, the on-demand online therapy emotional wellness service, the largest in the world. People know their free services, but they also have a paid subscription offering with access to courseware. And here are their plans. They start at $8 a month, $96 a year. And with that, you have access to their courseware, which they call paths. And these are the many topics. This startup is targeting the same exact audience as 7 Cups. And if this startup were to argue otherwise, I don't think they could present any significant or meaningful differentiators, at least nothing that's going to move the needle. I don't see a unique value proposition, nothing disruptive to the vertical space, and I do see a number of misleading and outright false representations from this startup. Let's get into it, and links to all my referenced articles are in the description. The founder of Real, in a Yahoo News press release, says, "We're not just putting the experience that exists today online, we're creating a new care model itself." She goes on to characterize their new care model as an on-demand one-to-many experience. What's said here sounds great, it's just not accurate or true, and the founder also omits key descriptive words for a strategic reason. Once the founder says on-demand, she's talking about pre-recorded content like what's on Udemy, the online courseware platform, or YouTube for that matter, or anything you can just dial up when you want or demand it. The accurate language in this business space for what she's talking about is self-guided care, but calling it for what it is openly pairs you with hundreds of mental health apps, one of which is 7 Cups. So, contrary to what the founder is saying, this is not a new care model. Another falsehood from this startup is their claim that their therapy model is unique in that it's quantitative, achievement-oriented coursework. Members complete various modules and levels of treatment when working through the curriculum, and all of the progress is tracked so improvements can be measured. The founder goes on to claim this is a first. Again, sounds great, however neither true or accurate. Any therapist can use an app called Quinza. That's it right there. You would use the app as an adjunct to any prescribed curriculum, treatment, program, courseware, workbook, whatever, and harness the same capability and much more as to what the Real startup is talking about. Or anyone can use software from Blueprint as an adjunct in serving patients. That's Blueprint right there. And as you can see, they say, helps clinicians enhance outcomes through the power and promise of digital measurement-based care. This is what this startup is talking about, and it's fairly prevalent and available industry-wide. I could go on, but I don't want to beat a dead horse with the founder. The point is made. Let's look at the big dogs, the venture capital firm behind this startup. They're called Lightspeed, but first, be mindful. The foundation of this startup is the claim of delivering group therapy, and that's what they do. I say this because this is what they say about themselves in media, and the venture capital firm behind them says this as well. None of this is accurate or true, but it's what they say. Okay, let's talk about the venture capital firm behind this startup, and that would be Lightspeed. And that there is executive Nicole Quinn, who in a publication called TechCrunch, with respect to this startup, The Real, says, you get to go to Alcoholics Anonymous and you really benefit through having groups. Can we apply that same group method by scaling in other areas? We have the fundamental belief that yes, you can. Miss Quinn here is implying Real, the startup, is applying the same group method as what takes place at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. This is patently false and misleading. Notice she uses the word groups twice here. That word groups does not exist on this startup's homepage or on their About Us page or on their How It Works page. The venture capitalist is stressing a word, a framework that is non-existent on this startup's 3 main pages on their website. It would probably be a good idea for this 2-year-old startup that got $16 million and the venture capital firm behind them to possibly get on the same page with the same messaging. I only bring this up to point out the venture capitalist firm is talking about something very different than what the startup actually does. And it's not clear to me that she understands that or knows that. Yes, this is bad, but the most egregious signal of a train wreck in the making is this later statement from Ms. Quinn, the venture capitalist behind this startup, when she says they have the clinical research to prove the effectiveness of group therapy and a team who are executing on it. Okay, time out. It's important that you fully understand. This is the kind of statement that serves as foundation from where class action lawsuits from investors emerge. The venture capitalist here is coupling and pairing something very precise and specific, the clinical research of the effectiveness of group therapy, and she is saying this startup is executing on that clinical research. In my opinion, that is a directly false statement. I'm confident zero of the protocols and guidelines or practices of the research the venture capitalist is pointing to are executed on in what this startup does. What people should understand is group therapy is a term that is ungoverned and unregulated, yet carries influence, weight, and persuasion, and thus has been co-opted in this business space by lots of companies. This startup is just one more example of an effort to capitalize on and monetize perceptions in language. Yes, there is a wide body of evidence that group therapy is clinically proven effective. Thus, in this space, the term is used without credence as currency to further an agenda, and that's what this startup is doing. There you see a standard layman's definition of group therapy, which involves people in a collective describing and discussing their problems. Nearly all of the studies supporting the effectiveness of group therapy, what that venture capitalist is pointing to, involve people sitting together in a room with 1 or 2 therapists leading the group, having weekly regular meetings. What unfolds in that framework is what's called group dynamics, the very key to the effectiveness of group therapy. In fact, there you see in the top arrows there, it says when it comes to the group format, new research shows 2 leaders are better than 1, as the second set of eyes and ears makes a big difference when group leaders are trying to follow multiple interactions within the group. So it's very important to understand the interplay, the interactions within the group is the foundation of the effectiveness of group therapy. Note that bottom arrow. It says research is also shedding light on how exactly groups help people heal. One important factor is the ability to interact with peers. And so it's just important to understand and appreciate The science behind group therapy is based on group dynamics, and remove the group dynamics from the equation and it's no longer group therapy. Group therapy requires continuity, successive meetings with the same familiar faces, as it takes time for people to feel comfortable and open up. People benefit from reciprocal observations of each other and watching the arc of progression of others over those successive meetings. This startup removes key elements, if not the very foundation of group therapy, and as you can see, they still call it group therapy. Why? Because they can, and it's marketable. It's a bait and switch play. You bait investors or the market with the term group therapy, and its proven effectiveness is above reproach. But switch it for something else when it comes to delivery of services and the promise of group therapy. This is about expediency of delivery of services, as executing on group therapy is a heavier lift. But startups do it. I have a video on the Circles app who does it as well as anyone else online. Having said all this about this company, what's really amazing about them is they have raised $16 million. That in a world where only 1 in every 2,000 startups that attempt to secure venture capital are actually able to. That's a 0.05% chance, and that's just for early seed funding. This startup has secured the second stage, Series A funding, and the total amount of venture capital they've secured is $16 million. So they have beaten the odds handsomely. And I truly don't know how they did it, because the founder of this startup does not seem to understand this business space, and or that they are not unique or particularly differentiated from numerous other healthcare providers. And the venture capitalist is adamant that this startup delivers group therapy, and they don't. And you will not see that word, that term, group therapy, anywhere on this startup's website. As the founder and the venture capitalists are both unclear about what they're saying, it's not clear to me that they actually know what they are doing. Thus, a train wreck is in the making. I see it coming, and I will unpack it and show it to you on the data side, the marketing side, in my next video. If you enjoyed this video, definitely like it, share it with a friend. If this is the kind of thing you enjoy, subscribe. I'm Lance. This is Therapy Grind. Until next time, take care.